As to count one, the court does order a life sentence as required by law. So the sentence is life imprisonment.
No, they took a piece of our joy.
She loved to dance. She was a choreographer.
Don't feel real to me that I lost people at the age that I am right now.
What's happening, Dark Secrets family? Before we dive into today's story, I need you to understand something. This case isn't just about crime, it's about humanity, about the right to exist safely in your own skin. If stories about justice in our community matter to you, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. We're here every day bringing you cases that need to be heard. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, February 26, 2023. A Sunday morning that should have been peaceful was shattered by the smell of smoke and the horror of what firefighters would discover inside an apartment on North 29th Street. When they broke down that door, they found more than just flames. They found 31-year-old Cash Henderson, shot multiple times, her life stolen in one of the most brutal ways imaginable. But the fire wasn't what killed her. It was meant to hide the truth. She was a very outgoing person. Cash was fabulous. She had a big heart. She loved children. She liked to have fun. She was always happy. Her life ended so soon. This is the story of Cash Henderson, a Black transgender woman who refused to dim her light in a world that often demanded she should. Today, we're uncovering the twisted events that led to her murder and the question that still haunts Milwaukee. Was this about hate, or was someone desperate to keep a deadly secret buried? Before we talk about that terrible February morning, you need to know who Cash Henderson really was. Her story doesn't begin with tragedy, it begins with resilience. Cash was born and raised in Chicago, growing up alongside her two sisters in a family that gave her something precious: love. Even as a young child, she carried an energy that people couldn't ignore. She had that spark, that presence that made it impossible not to notice her. By 13 or 14, Cash began her transition. For many transgender youth, those years are filled with rejection and loneliness. But Cash's family chose love. They accepted her for who she truly was, stood by her through her journey, and gave her the strength to live boldly in her truth. Friends and family described her as wickedly funny, the kind of person who could make you laugh when you least expected it. She was outspoken, never afraid to tell you exactly what she thought, but she carried that strength with charm that made people want to be around her. Cash loved connecting with people. Her Snapchat videos became windows into her world. One moment joking about being locked out of her car, the next clowning around with friends. It wasn't about perfection. Cash was real, raw, and present. Appearance mattered to her, not out of vanity, but out of pride. Every detail was part of the story she told about herself. Cash didn't walk into spaces asking for permission. She demanded to be seen exactly as she was. Her journey led her from Chicago to Milwaukee, seeking more opportunities and independence. One of her proudest achievements was buying herself a brand new Toyota, proof that she could provide for herself, that she was moving forward on her own terms. But Cash's story wasn't just about what she achieved for herself. She became an active member of Sheba Sisters, helping each other battle adversity, supporting Black transgender women for more than 5 years. She was known as an advocate, constantly urging others to speak out, to demand respect, to take control of their own narratives. In a society where Black trans women often face erasure, Cash refused to be invisible. She chose to live loudly and pushed others to do the same. To those who knew her best, Cash was a force of nature. Friends would say she could light up a room and own it completely. She had that rare combination of charisma and confidence that made people want to be near her. Her family's support never wavered. They were proud of her courage, proud of her accomplishments, proud of the way she lived authentically without compromise. Cash Henderson was laughter in motion, advocacy with heart, love wrapped in fearlessness. And it's that brightness that makes what happened on February 26, 2023, all the more devastating. February 26, 2023, a Sunday morning in Milwaukee that started peaceful but was shattered just after 9 a.m. when smoke began pouring from an apartment on the 53300 block of North 29th Street. Firefighters responded, expecting to battle flames. What they found was something far worse: 31-year-old Cash Henderson lying inside. And it was clear she hadn't died from the fire. Investigators noticed chilling details: a red gasoline can in the living room, a Toyota key fob, an unfired 9mm round. These weren't remnants of an accidental fire, they were evidence of a crime scene staged to cover up murder. The flames had been deliberately set in a cruel afterthought, a desperate attempt to erase what had happened hours before. Someone wanted to turn Cash's apartment into ash, to destroy any evidence of their crime. An autopsy confirmed what investigators suspected. Cash had been shot multiple times in the head and body. The fire was just window dressing on a murder. Neighbors shared what they'd heard earlier. Around 5:30 a.m., a loud noise like a gunshot had echoed through the building. Minutes later, the smell of gasoline began seeping into their homes. By the time smoke started drifting through the hallways, panic set in. They banged on Kerr's door, but there was no answer. Surveillance cameras became crucial. One camera captured Cash's Toyota being driven toward her apartment around 3:44 a.m. Later, another camera caught someone leaving the building on foot, slipping away from the scene. The pieces were coming together: the gasoline can, the bullet casing, the key fob, the car being used in the crime. But one crucial element was missing: the why. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was calculated, deliberate, and cruel. Someone had looked Cash Henderson in the eye and decided she didn't deserve to live. Then they'd tried to burn away any evidence, as if they could erase Cash herself. Inside Cash's Toyota, detectives discovered something that seemed ordinary: a container of Lysol wipes. But forensic technicians found a fingerprint that would crack this case wide open. That fingerprint matched a man named Cordell Housey. Witness testimony began filling in disturbing details. One man told police that Cordell had asked him for a ride from Nina to Milwaukee the day before Cash's murder. The witness dropped him off, not knowing he was delivering a killer to his victim. After the crime, Cordell showed up at his mother's house carrying items that didn't belong to him: a Gucci bag and a Rolex watch, later confirmed as belonging to Cash Henderson. He was wearing a dead woman's possessions like trophies. Then, in a move that showed how disturbed this man was, Cordell went back to his driver's house. He pulled out his phone and showed a video of Cash's body inside her apartment, taken after he had murdered her. With words that revealed his hatred, he described her as a disgusting transgender person. But he wasn't finished terrorizing people. He pulled out a gun and used it to hold the man and his wife hostage, leaving both witnesses shaken and terrified. As police closed in, Cordell ran. A dangerous high-speed chase followed, with him throwing evidence out of his car window. Among the discarded items was a handgun with a distinctive green laser attachment and magazines full of ammunition that matched the unfired bullet found in Cash's apartment. The plot and the chase ended when his car became disabled. Surrounded and out of options, the man who had murdered Cash Henderson was finally in handcuffs. Milwaukee, and the murder of a black transgender woman that is igniting demands for justice. 31-year-old Cash Henderson was found shot to death when authorities responded to a building fire. A suspect has just been arrested and charged with first-degree reckless homicide. Well, I'm glad that they found him and we got justice for our family. I'm praying because I really don't know much. It was an ongoing investigation, so it was really, a lot of details had not been released. Even with Housey in custody, one haunting question lingered. Why had he targeted Cash Henderson specifically? The answers would come during the investigation, revealing details that would shock even seasoned detectives. The investigation became one of Milwaukee's most meticulously documented cases. Detectives gathered an astonishing 350 pieces of evidence, leaving no room for doubt about Housey's guilt. Surveillance video showed Cash's Toyota being driven in the early morning hours and a figure slipping away after the crime. Digital forensics revealed phone data and search histories that painted a disturbing picture. The gun with its distinctive green laser sight was recovered, along with Cash's stolen possessions that Housey had flaunted like trophies. Most chilling was the video on Housey's phone, the recording of Cash's body that he'd used to terrorize witnesses, reducing her in death to something disgusting. But perhaps the most revealing evidence came from his phone activity on the day of the murder. Cordell Housey had searched for Milwaukee transgender Escort on the very day Cash was killed. Those search terms suggested this wasn't random, this was planned. When the case went to trial, the mountain of evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for just 1 hour before reaching their verdict. On June 10, 2024, Cordell Housey was found guilty on all counts: first-degree intentional homicide, arson, and possession of a firearm by a felon. I'm guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. I'm just glad that he was found guilty and justice is served. Friends of Cash Henderson say they have some closure. My friend Cash can really rest now. I'm just really happy that he found guilty. The prosecution had shown that Housey had either arranged to meet Cash or encountered her through circumstances lost to time. When confronted with who she was, he had responded not with acceptance or rejection, but with brutal violence. Nearly 2 years after Cash's murder, justice reached its conclusion in Judge David Swanson's courtroom. Judge Swanson delivered a sentence reflecting the gravity of the crimes: life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional years for firearm possession and arson. For Cordell Housey, there would be no second chances, no return to the outside world. Cash's family spoke with raw emotion about their loss. Her sister Ada's words captured the pain. This wasn't just an attack on her, it was an attack on everyone who believes in acceptance and kindness. We need justice, not just for our family, but for everyone who lives in fear because of who they are. We need to show that hate and violence is never okay. Housey offered what appeared to be an apology. I've been misguided in life, and I truly feel like I misguided others in life. There's no right or wrong answer to the way a life should be living or taken. I truly apologize to the community, to the courts, Cash's family. But Judge Swanson made it clear that no apology could undo the horror. He told the court there was no logical or coherent reason for the atrocities that had been committed. Cash's family described her as someone who had lit up every space she entered, someone who should have been building her life, not being remembered in a courtroom. The sentencing brought closure, but it couldn't bring Cash back. In the months following Cash's murder, Milwaukee confronted a devastating reality. She was the third Black transgender woman killed in just 9 months. Well, I know that Cash is the fourth known transgender woman to be killed in Milwaukee just in the past year. None of those crimes have been designated as hate crimes yet. Is there a threat to people like Cash in the city? I just hope everybody get justice. Advocacy groups like the Human Rights Campaign and National Black Justice Coalition called for action, urging recognition of the systematic violence facing Black trans women. They demanded protection, accountability, and an end to indifference. The community responded with vigils and balloon releases, moments of solidarity honoring Cash's life and legacy. They remembered her laughter, her boldness, the way she could light up any room just by being herself. But Cash's murder raised broader questions about why Black transgender women face such high rates of violence, why their deaths often receive less attention, and what it says about society when people can't live safely in their own truth. Cash's case was unusual in receiving significant attention and resulting in swift justice. Too often, murders of transgender women are dismissed or ignored. The fact that her story was told and her killer convicted represents justice that many families never receive. Cash Henderson should still be alive, still advocating for her community, still making people laugh, still building the life she had worked so hard to create. Instead, her story became another entry in the tragic catalog of violence against transgender women. But perhaps Cash would have wanted her story to inspire courage, not fear. Throughout her life, she had encouraged other transgender women to speak out, to demand respect, to refuse to be invisible. Even in death, her legacy continues, calling for the same bold authenticity that defined her life. Cash lived her 31 years with boldness most people never achieve. She refused to hide, refused to apologize for who she was, refused to let hatred dim her light. That choice shouldn't have cost her everything. But since it did, the best way to honor her memory is to continue building a world where everyone can live authentically without fear. Her story ends with justice served, but her legacy continues in every transgender person who chooses to live boldly, in every community that stands up for its most vulnerable members, in every person who refuses to let hatred have the final word. That's Cash Henderson's story, Dark Secrets Family, a life lived with courage, ended by cowardice, but remembered with love. If this case touched you, if it made you think about how we treat each other, then hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Cash deserved better, but her legacy lives on in everyone who refuses to let hatred win. Subscribe if you haven't already, because stories like this matter most. We'll be back tomorrow with another case that needs to be heard. Remember Cash Henderson, remember her light, and remember that everyone deserves to live authentically and safely in this world. Stay safe out there, Dark Secrets family.